When did you realize you were dealing with a man that had narcissistic behavior, that his pattern was the perfect example of a narcissist? When did you realize that all of their accusations, all they blame you for, is the actual declaration, confession of what they are doing? When did you realize it? I'll tell you. My eyes were wide open back in 2020 when I was able to get all of the court documents in the case involving my son, orders, declarations that were filed in the state of California regarding a case that had been opened in 2015. When I saw the shit that I was being accused of, when I saw all the lies and manipulation that was involved with that case involving an ex parte order, where the decision that they wanted had already been decided before the actual date of the ex parte. Before I had all those documents, that of course, even though they claimed that I got served the copies, there's a lot of corruption that goes on in family court or in other courts. If you don't agree with that, I don't care. I know, I lived it. And what rock are you hiding under? So anyway, back to the story. When did you realize that all their accusations are actual confessions? See, before you realize, perhaps you were like me, I used to get offended. It was so upsetting, you know. It was so upsetting when they would accuse me of, you know, being a bad mother, being involved with people that did drugs. One even said that I had been living with men doing drugs and that I had my children in there. The fucking accusations. You know, when in reality, that's what they were doing. You know, I was accused by one that I had given my son medication to sedate him, basically to drug him. I saw that an email that I had sent him got twisted and manipulated, and then he inserted the word Valium in there with his own handwriting. And that individual went around with that letter telling people that that's what I had done. You know, when you start putting all these pieces together, because honestly, I'll tell you, I think some of these individuals never thought that the cases were going to get together. Honestly, I think this individual never thought that I would be coming back to Missouri, because I did escape Missouri as soon as I got the court permission to leave back in 1999. I escaped an abusive relationship. They called it a high conflict divorce. It was an abusive relationship. So anyway, when did you find out that all they accuse you of is their actual declaration? So if you're still not there, I would encourage you to look into that. Narcissists accuse you of everything that they do, but they mind fuck you. They want to make you think that you're going crazy or that you're the one that's actually doing that. And before you know everything, because you know all you're trying to do is survive, you actually start to think some of the shit that they tell you. They're deflecting. So please investigate. Look into their Narcissist Playbook. Educate yourself. It's an eye-opener. You know, I just thought that I had escaped an abusive relationship. I escaped a very abusive man that definitely has narcissistic behavior, that has acted upon some really evil shit. I used to care what people thought about me. You know what? When you level up, you start giving any fucks about what people think about you or what they say. The smear campaigns, they're rendered useless. I don't need validation. Get to that point. It's so liberating. When you get to that point where you don't care what people say, when you know the truth, you know you're a good mother, you know you would never do any of those things. One of the things that I got accused of is that, you know, I didn't understand or I didn't care for my oldest son. You know, my oldest son was diagnosed early on in his, soon after, or a couple years after his birth, with a mild form of cerebral palsy. All that, you know, got twisted around. And, you know, this guy made people believe that I was the one that couldn't accept my son, when in reality, he never did. He was always comparing my son. there's documents where he actually wrote, back in 2015, he literally had called my son the R word, or MR, that he was mentally retarded. He referred to him as that at the airport with an airport official when my son went to visit me back in 2015. And of course, my son hates that word, and he was very upset. And as soon as my son was able to tell me, he told me what had happened. And before I knew that these abusive men turn everything around, I actually sent him an email. And of course, no doubt, he turned that email around too. And I've got everything together now. It doesn't matter all those boxes of documents that he has, all those manipulated, documents. I've got the originals. So, I've got all the hospital reports. I've got all the doctor's letters. I've got declarations from doctors, therapists, psychiatrists, hospital, directors. And so, it doesn't matter anymore. I'm not seeking validation. I'm not looking for corrupt, individuals or, even group homes that all they care, is about money. Even though, I was blamed about that too, that, I was interested in money. Motherfuckers never gave me a dime. I've raised my own children. I had a really good career, and I was able to sustain, protect my children.